I recently made a video on the political parties in Denmark, the first in a series of videos I'm working on about the parties of the countries of Europe. The video was very positively received, and a lot of you left some really lovely comments and some great ideas for how I can improve future videos. It was suggested I start with some information about parliamentary makeup and some background, and that I include the party's European parliamentary groupings. So that's exactly what I'll do. A few people also suggested I avoid jumping around from one end of the spectrum to the other and instead use a spectrum or compass to navigate. However, I personally detest political spectrums and compasses. They just don't allow for nuance, political irregularity, and they tend to turn something as qualitative as political positioning into something that looks quantitative and scientific. But to make the jumps less jarring, I'll work through the government first, and then I'll go to the opposition parties. Hopefully that'll be a bit easier to follow. And so with all of that out of the way, in this video, I'll be going through the political parties of Sweden. First, let's have a quick look at the background. Sweden has a unicameral parliament, meaning one chamber, which holds 349 members. The largest party is the center-left Social Democratic Party, the second largest is the hard-right Sweden Democrats, and the third largest, and the party that spearheads the current government, is the center-right Moderate Party. The current government is a minority coalition government made up of the moderates and the self-explanatory Christian Democrats and Liberals. This government receives confidence and supply from the Sweden Democrats based on an agreement that was drawn up after the last general election in September 2022. This agreement is known as the Tito Agreement, named after the castle where it was negotiated and signed. The last election was dominated by issues of immigration after a massive surge in gang violence committed by first and second generation immigrants from the Middle East, Africa, and the Balkans. Sweden has previously been a country very supportive of immigration, especially standing in contrast to its hardline southern neighbor Denmark. But the surge in violence has very much changed the tune. The next election is due to be held in September next year, and parties are already starting to sharpen their knives for this contest. Election dates are fixed, but snap elections can be called, but that doesn't reset the electoral clock. So in theory, if an election were called tomorrow, another one would still have to take place in September 2026. Elections are conducted using an open list leveling seat system with a threshold of 4%. So unless a party is very strong in one specific locality, they will need to get at least 4% nationally of the votes to get any seats. And so with that background out of the way, let's turn to the parties. And we'll start with the government parties, and then we'll go over to the opposition afterwards. And so we'll begin with the Moderate Party. The Moderate Party is Sweden's main center-right party. It is liberal conservative and sits with the European People's Party in the European Parliament. The party was founded in 1904 as the General Electoral League to provide a right-wing counter to the Social Democrats and the Liberals at the time. It was later renamed as the Right Party before becoming the Moderates in 1969. In the party's early years, it led a couple of governments before World War II, but in the post-war years, the party was a less significant factor and only served as junior coalition partner on a few occasions to other center-right parties. From around the 1960s, the party, which was traditionally very conservative, started moderating. By the late 1970s, it had become the best performing center-right party, and it formed its first post-war government in the 1990s. Since then, they have been one of the two parties of government, the other being the Social Democrats. In the 1990s, it was the moderates that led Sweden's accession to the European Union, effectively ending the country's non-alignment policy, its neutrality on the Cold War and the US-Soviet geopolitical schism. The current leader is Ulf Kristersson, who is also the Prime Minister of Sweden. He's someone who has moved the party rightwards again, especially on immigration and law and order, and the first government leader who has agreed to base a government on support from the Sweden Democrats. During Kristersson's tenure, Sweden has joined NATO, increased defense spending significantly, but his big foreign policy defense prestige project, which was creating a National Security Council and introducing the role of a National Security Advisor, has been a massive bad news story magnet, with two National Security Advisors resigning one after the other due to scandals, and Kristersson's former foreign minister resigning in protest against the handling of all of this. At the last election, the moderates came in third with 19% of the vote, winning 68 seats. It's currently on track for a small decrease to 17% and 65 seats. Now let's go to the first junior coalition partner, the Christian Democrats. The Christian Democrats is a center-right, you guessed it, Christian Democratic Party, and sits with the European People's Party in the European Parliament as well. It was founded in 1964 as the Christian Democratic Rally, a very socially conservative party focused on issues like opposing abortion, opposing growing secularism, and emphasizing the nuclear family unit. This was in large part a response to the dominance at the time of the Social Democrats and the Liberals, who were both much more secularist. The party had a long way to influence. It wasn't until 1985 that the party managed to enter parliament with a single seat, and only due to a technical cooperation with the Centre Party. But in the 1990s, the party started moderating on their socially conservative views and started emphasizing welfare policy, such as health and social care, as well as advocacy for family support and immigration, especially asylum. This helped them in 1991 break through, and it's passed the 4% threshold in every election since then, on several occasions serving as a junior coalition partner to the moderates. During its modernization period, the party also stopped suggesting legal restrictions on abortion, though it still nominally opposes the practice. It is currently led by Ebba Busch and has been for over 10 years now. She's also the current Deputy Prime Minister, as well as Minister for Energy, Business and Industry. While she's upheld the party's emphasis on welfare and kept the party mostly more moderate, she did move the party rightwards on law and order and especially immigration. In 2022, she made some big promises on bringing down hospital waiting lists that seem to be biting her and her party, as they are nowhere close to being delivered and could spell doom for the party at the election next year. At the last election, the party won 5% of the vote, taking 19 seats. It's currently polling at around 3%, which would take it below the threshold and mean 0 seats. And now for the final coalition party, the Liberals. The Liberals is a centrist, socially and economically liberal party. It sits with Renew in the European Parliament. In the early 20th century, there were various groupings and parties in the liberal wing of Swedish politics, all continuously split over the question of the prohibition of alcohol. These various parties led a handful of governments through the first 3 decades of the century. The party known today as the Liberals was formed in 1934 through the merger of 2 of these, the Free-Minded National Association and the Liberals of Sweden. They participated in the wartime cabinet, but following the war, they lost relevance due to the dominance of the Social Democrats and the emergence of the Centre Party, though the Liberals did participate as a junior coalition partner. But after some coalition troubles with the Centre Party, the Liberals did briefly lead a government in the 1970s before permanently being resigned to junior coalition partnership with the centre-right ever since. Naturally, this party is not very comfortable with the prospects of working with the hard-right Sweden Democrats, given the Liberals' natural pro-immigration stance. However, under the last leader, Johan Persson, this objection was removed when it became apparent that cooperation would be a parliamentary algorithmic necessity. Earlier this year, Persson resigned and was replaced by Simona Mohamsson, someone who has previously ruled out working with the Sweden Democrats and now finds herself in a government relying on their votes. This clash has proved very difficult for the party to manage. At the last election, the party only just cleared the threshold with under 5% of the vote and 16 seats. It currently finds itself at polls comfortably under the threshold at around 2% and therefore 0 seats. And now let's turn to the 4th signatory to the Tito Agreement, the Sweden Democrats. The Sweden Democrats are a hard-right anti-immigration party. While not a part of the coalition government, it serves as confidence and supply. Its European affiliate is the ECR. The party was founded in 1988 after the dissolution of the Sweden Party, which in turn had been founded as a political manifestation of the Keep Sweden Swedish movement, which had been operating since the end of the 1970s. The early days of the Sweden Democrats saw the party often associate with genuine neo-Nazi actors and groups. Its first leader didn't do much to dispel this, neither did the party's very militant youth wing. This, however, also meant that despite a few minor successes on the local level, the party did not make any national electoral gains, which led the Sweden Democrats to begin moderating. The first wave started under new leadership in 1995, and the second wave came when the current leader, Jimmy Åkesson, took over the party in 2005. Åkesson disavowed extremism, embraced the welfare state, took on liberal views on homosexuality, and rebranded the party to more welcoming messaging. It did, however, remain hardline on immigration and continues to oppose multiculturalism. The party's moderation, as well as increased levels of immigration at the time, led the party to their first parliamentary electoral success in 2010. From 2010 to 2022, the other parties generally refused to work with the Sweden Democrats, like the Brandenmauer keeping the AfD out of power in Germany. But this eroded in the lead up to the 2022 election, when many political parties moved rightwards on immigration, and the centre-right realized that they would need to work with the Sweden Democrats if they ever wanted to form a government again. And so after the election, they became a signatory to the Tito Agreement, and served as official confidence and supply. This, alongside their own continued moderation, for example acknowledging and apologizing for their former Nazi ties earlier this year, has led the party to become more normalized. So much so that the political media have recently been flirting with ideas that Åkesson may soon be a prime ministerial contender, though this is still a long shot. At the last election, the party received almost 21% of the vote, giving them 73 seats. Currently, they're on course for almost 24% and 91 seats. But next year, the biggest threat to the Sweden Democrats holding power is an alliance of the current opposition. And the most significant player in that opposition is the Social Democratic Party. The Social Democratic Party is the main center-left party of government in Sweden. It is like many other social democratic parties across Europe and sits with SND in the European Parliament. It was founded in 1889 by the growing trade union movement, and it quickly gained massive political significance, forming its first government in 1920. Since then, it has always been one of the two main parties at any given time, either leading a government or leading the opposition. From the 1930s to the 1970s, the Social Democrats were especially dominant, leading the government for a consecutive almost 40 years. During this period, the Social Democrats led the formation of the Swedish welfare state and rolled out full suffrage. From the mid-1970s onwards, the party lost its grip on the Swedish state, but continued to lead governments, though broken up by center or center-right governments here and there. Aside from welfare and unionism, the party's also defined itself as a secularist party that helped to introduce some quite liberal elements to Swedish politics, including being pro-choice, pro-LGBT rights, and pro-immigration. At the same time, the party was the most significant factor in maintaining Swedish non-alignment, so much so that even after joining the EU, the Social Democrats still tried to walk a careful tightrope of military non-alignment until Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The party is led by Magdalena Andersson, who served as prime minister just under a year before the 2022 election. Like many other party leaders, she's been responsible for a significant shift to the right on immigration and law and order after the surge in gang violence and public anger I described earlier. The Social Democrats received 30% of the vote at the last election, winning 107 seats and remaining the largest party. Polls right now have them increasing to almost 35% and 131 seats. Let's now turn to the Left Party. The Left Party is a left-wing socialist party, and the most left-wing of the major Swedish parties. It's part of the Eurosceptic European Parliament grouping, the Left. It was founded in 1917 as the Swedish Social Democratic Left Party after splintering away from the Social Democratic Party. The new party had left its more moderate party to answer Lenin's call for international revolution. It therefore joined the Comintern, the Communist International Organization, and in the 1920s it was renamed to the Communist Party of Sweden. Since its founding, the party has managed to get MPs elected to the parliament at every single election, even through the party's very chaotic years in the 20s, 30s, and early 40s. In the 1920s, the Comintern expelled all the party's MPs and most of its members, leading to a very short-lived breakaway party. In the 1930s and early 40s, it supported the Soviet Union's invasion of Sweden's neighbor Finland, and when the Nazis invaded the country's other neighbor, Norway, the party took a neutral stance. This all led to a short stint of restrictions and a dip in electoral fortunes. But after the war, when the party returned to mostly having to fight domestic economic issues, it began doing well again. The 1960s saw a significant modernization of the party as it began rejecting Stalin's regime in the Soviet Union and started embracing democracy. By 1990, the party had been renamed as the Left Party. It's now a party defined by feminism, pro-LGBT and pro-Palestine stances, environmentalism, pro-immigration, anti-EU and anti-NATO, and of course, very pro-socialism. Rent control, nationalization, wealth taxes, etc., etc. It's also become a mainstream party in the sense that it has provided confidence and supply to several social democratic governments. It's currently led by Nooshi Dadgostar, who is trying to prepare the party to one day join a coalition government, but finds herself in hot water due to internal disagreements of where the line goes between being pro-Palestine and anti-Semitic. This led to the resignation of 2 MPs accused of anti-Semitism, who are now working on founding a rival party. At the last election, the party won just shy of 7% of the vote and 24 seats. As things stand now, before a potential left-wing alternative, they're looking to do about the same in percentage and a slight increase in seats due to other parties falling below the threshold. Let's now turn to the Center Party. The Centre Party is a centrist liberal agrarian party. It's a member of the Renew Europe group in the European Parliament. It was founded in 1913 by the Swedish Rural Economic Society of farmers and landowners at a time when they were worrying of overrepresentation by industry and urbanites. It first entered Parliament in 1917. At the time, it was a protectionist party that advocated in favor of trading barriers and for social conservatism. The party led a brief minority government that only lasted for a summer in 1936, and over the next 4 decades of social democratic dominance, the Centre Party would moderate on social issues, becoming the Centre Party, and find several occasions to work with the Social Democrats in government. In the 1970s, the Centre Party led to short-lived centre-right governments at a time when the party was also moving towards more economically liberal views on trade, so far so that they supported EU membership, which is quite unique for an agrarian party. This came on top of more socially liberal and environmental policies that were also adopted by the party. This shift placed the Centre Party in the middle of Swedish politics, which means that it's been able to play a kingmaker role in recent decades, working both with the centre-right governments under the moderates and the centre-left governments under the Social Democrats. Currently, the party is more inclined to work with the left sphere of politics, being a very likely coalition partner in a potential social democratic government after the next election. The party is led by Anna-Karin Hatt, someone who has held on to the party's shift towards the centre, even centre-left, and someone who is seen as a safe pair of hands after the Centre Party has been losing rural voters to the Sweden Democrats, but her sensibilities don't seem to be winning those voters back. At the last election, the party secured under 7% of the vote, taking 24 seats. They're currently on course to about 5% or around 20 seats. Now let's pop back over to the last party, the Green Party. The Green Party is a centre-left environmentalist, socially liberal party on the softly socialist end of the economic spectrum. In the European Parliament, it sits with the Greens Free Alliance group. The party was founded in 1981 out of the anti-nuclear movement in tandem with the International Green Party movement at the time. From day one, the party profiled itself on environmentalism, feminism, and global peace. In recent years, it's also defined itself more and more as a pro-Palestine party. There is a bit of a tension at the heart of the party that sometimes comes to the fore, whether it should focus on environmentalism or continue also defining itself on socially liberal issues. The party broke through and was elected to parliament in 1988. It shot to mainstreamness by the mid-1990s, and the party served as confidence and supply for the Social Democrats, and in the 2010s, the party joined its first government as a junior coalition partner. Like many other Green parties across Europe, it operates under a slightly complicated system of leadership, where it doesn't have leaders but spokespeople, and where there always has to be one male and one female spokesperson to ensure equality. The current spokespeople are Daniel Halden and Amanda Lind, where Halden is a strong environment and climate change guy, and Lind is an ardent social justice advocate, sort of answering both sides of the coin that sometimes causes internal friction. At the last election, the party got 5% of the vote and 18 seats, and it currently stands around the same place at almost 5% and 17 seats. And that's it, the 8 main parties of Sweden. What country would you like me to do next? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.